Audio. Up here.
A little bit of an announcement. We're a little delayed as we get the overflow room started and a few technical issues. So please remain calm and carry on.
That's okay. Not yet. Not yet.
But is there any, what are we connected to? Do you have a lock?
Just the
All the outputs are called.
all of them are full, yeah.
Special announcement, please pay attention. We have had a severe request from the media that since they are locked out because our fire marshal has said there's too many of us in this room already, they have requested with bended knee, will anyone particularly want to give up your location in this room and attend to the room next door so that one of our media people can enter the room? It is your personal decision. It is for you to decide your role as a resident and your priority as to your location here and what you want to do out there. So if you wish to attend to that request, please go to the back. It looks like we have two people attending, and that, there you go. And then we will be starting shortly once I get the okay from the city clerk. We have agendas and benched items and all sorts of other things that will be available in the, that can be brought over here and in the overflow room if you do not have it. The agenda, by the way, is very sparse, but you may be interested in some of the other aspects, and we are here to serve. So, Madam Clerk, let me know when you are ready. We'll give a few minutes for the media to set up, and it would be very nice if they would give free tickets to Disneyland or something for those who have yielded their priority position in the council chamber. Thank you. We'll give you a few minutes. Oh, and a reminder, please silence or vibrate your phones. When we get to the point where people will want to cheer or boo
or make other outrageous demonstrations, this is a cheer, this is a big cheer, this is a boo, this is a big boo. Is anyone unclear on the concept? Okay. Yes, thank you very much. We will be starting shortly.
Hey, Rich, you got an XLR? Let me see it. It's a little, you can have this one, but it's only channel one. Rich, you get anything?
Yes. A little over my budget.
Okay, this is the official start of the Concord City Council special meeting. We are also sitting as the local reuse authority. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hoffmeister.
Here.
Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Councilmember McGallion.
Here.
Vice Mayor Obringer.
Here.
And Mayor Garcia.
Here. And with that, I'd like to ask our Vice Mayor to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now, we will proceed with a report from Guy Berkey, the project director of everything that has to do with this.
Good morning, or good morning.
Good afternoon.
Always on a good roll. Good afternoon, members of the City Council and members of the public. I think my purpose here at the beginning of the meeting, this special meeting about the proposed detention center on the Concord Naval Weapons Station is to inform the council, remind the council of what has occurred since Friday, what information we do know as of now, so that we can begin to have both public comment and council discussion relevant to that information. As you know, on Friday, Time Magazine published a story in which the potential for a detention center holding up to 47,000 folks at the Concord Naval Weapons Station was daylighted, and it referenced a draft Navy memo. I first learned of that article while riding a bus between Seward, Alaska and Anchorage, Alaska. As you know, I was on vacation last Friday, and media inquiries were hitting my phone and making that bus ride even more entertaining than the driver, Sean, was trying to do so. So there was very little information available at that time, and so I put a call into our Navy contacts, the Navy folks that we are working with at the Base Realignment and Closure Project Management Office in San Diego. And I left a message with them asking them to help clarify what was going on relative to the cited memo in the article. I also that afternoon, and other members of staff that afternoon, spoke to Congressman DeSaulnier to see what information the congressman, who was still in Washington at the time, could provide us. And Mark was making as many inquiries as he could on Friday afternoon. On Monday, the Navy did respond with a statement relative to the Time Magazine article, and I'll read that statement for your benefit. The statement from Navy spokesman, Chief Navy Spokesman Captain Gregory Hicks says, in order to inform potential senior leader discussions around the topic being detention centers, Navy planners proactively pulled together a list of options that could be considered. The memo is strictly pre-decisional and meant for informed deliberation by senior leaders. So that was the Navy statement on Monday. That has been the Navy statement, and it continues to be the Navy statement. Based on that statement, we again made additional calls to the Navy and to other members of our political leadership to see if additional information could be secured. At that point, the mayor, together with city staff, assembled a letter requesting information from the Secretary of the Navy, Richard Spencer, and that letter was issued on Monday. And I believe that letter has been widely distributed, in which we both explain our need for additional information about the proposal, as well as explain some of the impediments to implementing that proposal on the Concord Naval Weapons Station. Yesterday afternoon, a communication was received by Sheriff David Livingston at the county. And in that communication, which Sheriff Livingston shared with the Board of Supervisors and was then subsequently shared with members of the public and obviously with our city this morning, the sheriff learned, and I quote, "I was recently advised by the California Office of Emergency Services high-ranking officials that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has said there will be no relocation camps established in Concord or anywhere in California, FYI, at this time." Just a few minutes ago, Congressman DeSaulnier called the city manager and further informed us that he has informal confirmation that there is no intention of establishing detention facilities in Concord or in California. He is working now to obtain written verification of that, and so I wanted to make you aware that is the extent of the information we have at this time. In a conversation earlier this morning, once again with the BRAC PMO office in San Diego, I was informed that that office has been told to maintain course in the transfer and the development of the reuse project here in Concord.
Explain the BRAC PMO.
Base
please.
Realignment and Closure Project Management Office, which is the direct office of the Navy that we work with in the planning of the transfer of the property and in terms of planning the reuse of the property.
Thank you.
So that's the information that the city has at this time, Mr. Mayor. Myself and other members of staff would be glad to answer questions that you might come across as you have these discussions.
Okay. The procedure will be as follows. We will have first, Guy, wait. Do we have any immediate questions on what was presented? Nope. Nope. Okay, thank you, Guy. We will now go into public comment. We have, as you know, two rooms, this room and the other room. It takes a little bit longer for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up people from this room, and I will also call people from the other room and allow them some time to fit in when they arrive. So public comment is in regard to the topic of the day, which is the, I'll read it exactly, that reports of potential detention center and or migrant housing at the former Concord Naval Weapons Station and or Coast Guard property, including community input, coordination with other elected officials, and possible formulation and implementation of council response and city action. I also will inform you that two of us will be in a meeting at 5 o'clock with Assemblyman Grayson and others to discuss this further. We will need to have a discussion amongst the council on what the council feeling is for us to go into that meeting advised by the full council. So there may come a time if we keep getting cut this off somewhere around 4 o'clock so we can be prepared to have this. We also may have one individual who may have to leave, but that will still, we will still continue and carry on. So with that being clear, we'll go with the...
Just have a quick, excuse me, Mayor,
Carla?
I just have a quick question. You said that you're participating in a meeting. Could you share with us, it will be with Assemblymember Grayson. Will there be other electeds? And who is representing
okay.
our council?
Our council will be represented by myself and Tim McGallion. It has to be under that situation because of the Brown Act in regards to discussions that we have where under the Brown Act we are sort of like broken up into certain pairs on topics, and what we lovingly call our designated brownie is him. He is my brownie, I'm his brownie in regard to this issue of the base. No Girl Scout was involved in the delivery of these brownies. So this is what we're doing. I do not know the extent to which who will show up at that meeting. Mr. Grayson, Assemblyman Grayson, has sent out invitations to others. The typical electeds would be Karen Mitchoff, our Board of Supervisor, Glazier, our State Senator, and of course, Mark Desaulniers, who I believe is still in Washington and probably unable to clone himself over here in time. Huh? Yeah, he may Skype in, but that's to the extent, and that is why there's two of us, and that's what's happening. So, with that, I was just handed something for immediate release. Do we have this?
It's Mark Desaulniers' recent press release. You don't need to read it necessarily.
Okay, we already covered this.
We covered the
Okay.
main point of it. And are there
Very
extras
good.
in the back? In 5 minutes, we'll have extras in the back.
Right. So you'll have something else in regard to this,
which was basically stated by Guy Lurkey. Okay, first, we will go ahead, shuffle the cards. I'll cut the deck, and we'll see who comes up first. And the answer is, I'm going to add 5. You want to cut? We play random cards on occasion. I wouldn't say poker because that's illegal. All right, Addie Oliveira, Victoria Fierce, Craig Fleming, and Chris Gittner. Those are from this room. Okay? I'm going to read the next 5 from the other room. Attention of the room. Attention of the room. We have Gabby Rivas, Dolores Ramos, Lamar Anderson, Leyland Freisted, and George Fulmore.
Through the mayor.
Okay.
Through the mayor, could you please clearly indicate the time allotment for each?
Time allotment will be 2 minutes. Okay? Which is twice as much as we had last night. And we were here till midnight.
Is that how
You can tell she's been here before.
You just put the microphone down. That makes you very well, thank you.
Adi Olvera. I'm a resident of Concord, and I'm also a member of Concord Community Alliance. I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you so much for your great news today. And while that gives us hope, I feel like we still need to continue to bring our concerns to the table because the information we're receiving is not confirmed, it's not solid. And so I want to invite the community to continue to bring the concerns because this battle, while it is directly impacting Concord, it impacts our nation. And so I'm going to try to modify my original comments to fit your great announcement today. Our community, our immigrant community here in Concord faces many distresses already. Transportation issues, finding affordable housing. They're hardworking immigrant families. Many of us are educated, become educated from our countries to come here, try to make a better life for ourselves and our family, and our children. I was brought here as a child myself, naturalized when I was 19. And I'm a first college graduate in my family. And it means a lot to me to live in Concord and to have a safe place and to have a council that responded so quickly for us. So I want to thank you for that. And lastly, I just want to say that while you stood up for us on social media, you responded with the letter. I want to push you to do more. Eddie, yesterday you said that you've been supporting us, waving at us from your car. I know you always do more than that. I want to see you guys get off your car and stand in solidarity with us because I haven't at the last few rallies that we've had. And so thank you, but please, step it up a little bit more. Comes from my heart. Thank you.
have Victoria, then Craig, then Chris. Okay.
That's kind of.
But you do it so well.
Hi, my name is Victoria Pierce. I'm with East Bay for Everyone. We're a housing abundancy group based out of the East Bay, and we helped organize the big march and rally last night. So thank you so much for allowing that to happen, and thank you especially for your very quick response on this issue. I myself, and a lot of us within East Bay for Everyone, and a lot of the people who showed up last night, we don't really trust the federal government based on what they've been doing so far. So even though they're saying that they're trying to cancel this and they're pulling the plans, I still think that we need to keep a watchful eye and make sure that it doesn't happen, and look at this as an opportunity to do what we can do to prevent it from happening again in the future. And also, as we demonstrated last night, this isn't just a Concord issue. There's people from all over the Bay Area who are worried about this issue. There were some 200 people from Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, especially Concord, Walnut Creek, Lafayette, all the other cities that showed up last night in support of what you guys are doing to stand up for people. And just like the previous speaker said, yeah, a lot of it is about showing solidarity and being out there and being in the streets and showing people that you are willing to do what it takes to really stop this. And the law can only go so far. I myself am training to be a lawyer myself, going to law school soon. But I know that there's extents to it, and there's only so much that we can do to push back against the federal government. And I'm really encouraged by how quickly the city of Concord came out in opposition to this and is already looking for things to do. So keep at it. This is good. It's not enough, but we got to keep going. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria. Please line up over here, make life easier and faster. I've got Craig and then Chris, and then we get the overflow group starting.
Hi, I'm Craig Fleming, a longtime Concord resident, retiree, bar electrician, and a member of the Concord Communities Alliance. And I've been watching this base realignment and closure procedure for the last 10, 12 years or so that's been going on. And I remember the first time Concord got the rug pulled out from under it with Shaw Infrastructure, and they all of a sudden coming up out of nowhere and offering Shaw all the title and parts of the base in exchange for $4.5 billion worth of worldwide infrastructure work, wharves and airfields, whatever. And so that kind of faded away, but now we have it again, knee-jerk reactions, or what's happening with, is this between DOJ and Defense Department? Is Sheriff Livingston involved in this with getting more, detainees or whatever for his, going to help pay for his West County facility or what? But it's stupid. I'm glad to hear this recent news. I hope it pans out to be true. But with no infrastructure out there, no sewer, no water, what's the scope of this? Is it semi-permanent, temporary, what? Tents? We don't know. But we got to oppose it on no infrastructure because of our existing agreements that we get almost to the end and then boom, rug pulled out from under us again. Just the latest insult, all the chaos in Washington. And so, so no infrastructure. We already have an existing reuse agreement for other stuff. And then finally, it's just wrong. It's just morally wrong. And more and more Californians are standing up against this kind of thing. More detention camps, more Trump gulags, and Jeff Sessions, whatever. And we got to stop it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Craig, then Chris, and then we go to the overflow room.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident of Oakland. I'll keep this short since I'm sure it's been a past few days for everyone. I'm a volunteer organizer with East Bay for Everyone, and I'm skipping work today since this is an important meeting. I ask that everybody remember how they feel today with this victory that we all won against the current administration. I ask that everybody remember that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good people should do nothing. We rose up today as a community, and for today we prevailed against evil. This isn't the last time that we will have to rise up as a community against this administration that is slowly slipping down this very slippery slope towards fascism. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Okay, I would like the next 5 people to line up over here. I have Gabby Rivas, Dolores Ramos,
Lamar Anderson, Leyland Bricef, and George Fulmore. Lineup group, come forth.
Good evening, Mayor, good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Gabby Rivas, and I'm the Community Engagement Program Coordinator with First 5 Contra Costa. I'm here again tonight, and today before you to ask for your support in continuing to reject and denounce and doing everything you can to resist this potential development of an immigration detention here in Concord. Our vision as First 5 Contra Costa is to have children grow up in healthy, ready for school, and supportive and safe nurturing families and communities. We know that the city of Concord shares similar values and also strives to have a community where families and children are thriving. As advocates of young children, we are outraged by the news, and we find ourselves in a very tumultuous time. And sadly, our young children are the ones being critically traumatized by all of this. We know that the first 5 years are the foundation for the rest of a child's life, and that separation from a parent can have irreversible negative impacts. Children torn from their parents' arms not only causes unimaginable suffering right now, but such toxic stress has long-lasting impact capable of changing a child's DNA. The worst possible thing to happen to a child is to be separated from a loving parent. Let there be no doubt that these detention centers are government-sanctioned child abuse. It is imperative that we protect the childhood of these innocent and vulnerable human beings. They deserve environments where they can grow and thrive. As an inclusive and welcoming city, and as leaders we elected, we urge you to continue to do everything you can to stop this terrible and unacceptable development to happen. We know that we have your full support in denouncing this and any future development of this kind, and you most definitely will have our support. Thank you.
Just a moment. For those of you who are unfamiliar with procedures, when we have someone who's going to be using a translator, we allow twice the amount of time.
Thank you.
So if you're going to be using the translator, that's a state law, but some of us are not as...
Thank you so much for that. Buenas tardes, alcalde, concejales y personal de la ciudad. Mi nombre es Dolores Ramos, presidenta del Grupo Regional del Centro del Condado. Hoy venimos mis compañeros y yo representando a la comunidad de familias inmigrantes. En este momento se están sintiendo vulnerables por la noticia de que se han propuesto construir un centro de detención en nuestra comunidad.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Dolores Ramos, chair of the Central County Regional Group. Today, my colleagues and I are here representing the community of immigrant families. At this moment, they are feeling very vulnerable with the news of the proposal to build a detention center in our community.
Como ustedes saben, nosotros nos enfocamos en crear comunidades seguras, saludables y agradables para todas las familias. Luchamos por la justicia y equidad de nuestra comunidad para que nuestros niños pequeños puedan...
We focus on creating safe, healthy, and more family-friendly environments for all families. We fight for justice and equity in our community so that our young children can grow with the best opportunities.
No es posible que ustedes permitan la construcción de un centro de detención para inmigrantes. Esta acción afectaría a nuestra comunidad inmigrante inmensamente y más a nuestros pequeños.
It is not possible for you to allow the construction of the detention center for immigrants. This action would affect our immigrant community immensely and will affect much more our young children.
En estos momentos, con esta noticia, nuestra comunidad se siente temerosa con este ambiente de injusticias hacia las familias inmigrantes. Nuestros niños están siendo afectados. Me duele sentirme tan impotente al no poder protegerlos de todas estas noticias. Ustedes no pueden imaginar el dolor, frustración y desesperación de nuestros hijos al escuchar en las noticias sobre las deportaciones y separaciones de familia.
In this moment and with this news, our community feels fearful and surrounded by injustices towards immigrant families. I see how all this is affecting our children, and it hurts me to feel so helpless because I cannot protect them from all the news. You cannot imagine the pain,
frustration, and despair of our children when listening to the news about the deportations and the family separation. Y ahora, con toda esta noticia de tener un centro de detención en nuestra comunidad, se presentarían todas estas emociones negativas. Nuestros niños son los más vulnerables e indefensos en esta situación y todos tenemos la obligación de protegerlos. And now with the news of having a detention center in our community, all these negative emotions will only increase. Our children are the most vulnerable and defenseless in this situation, and we all have an obligation to protect them. Concord es una ciudad inclusiva y necesitamos en estos momentos escuchar de nuestros electos oficiales que evitarán a toda costa que este centro de detención sea creado. Lo que Concord necesita son centros recreativos, calles seguras, viviendas accesibles y ambientes equitativos para nuestras familias y niños. No necesitamos centros de detención, no necesitamos racismo, no necesitamos injusticias, no necesitamos a nuestros niños preocupados y llenos de miedo. Concord is an inclusive city, and at this time, what we need to hear from our elected officials is that they will prevent at all costs the creation of this detention center. What Concord needs is community recreation centers, safer streets, affordable housing, and equitable environments for our families and children. We do not need detention centers. We do not need racism. We do not need injustices, and we do not need our children worried and full of fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I have Lamar Anderson, Leyland, and then George in the overflow room. And from this room, the next five would be Greg Vermenliff, Rebecca, Zane Gunda, Natalie, and Paul Bickmore. Thank you.
I'm a commissioner for Contra Costa County, and I was a former lieutenant, United States Navy, and Kampuchea, Cambodia Detachment Unit, so I know a little bit about this sort of thing. A couple of things I want to share with you in terms of a lesson to be learned from this is that the property has not been transferred or cleaned up. We have hired a builder in San Francisco when they were faced with the same situation that we faced with here in Concord. The taxpayers in San Francisco spent $1 billion cleaning up their property after the builder had built some homes on it. In San Francisco, that's a ship repair yard. All they did is repair ships there at that yard. Here in Concord, we stored weapons of mass destruction. So it produced a different kind of destruction to the environment. So this is what I suggest and or recommend to the council and the people of Concord. Let's secure the transfer of the property ASAP. Let's clean the property up so we won't be stuck with $1 billion cost. Then we can devise a development plan. Then we can go forward with a builder, and we need to keep this out of the hands of Donald Trump and the federal government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thank you, Lamar. Leyland, how do I pronounce your last name?
Frayseth.
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 Thank you, sir. And then George, and then I'm into Greg and Rebecca.
Dear Concord City Council members, staff, and the public, today I rise. My name is Leland Frayseth. I am a 34-year resident of Concord, California. Today I rise in opposition of President Trump's leaked plans to use the Concord Naval Weapons Station as a detention center as part of his zero-tolerance immigration plan. Trump is using this issue as a wedge to divide us for a purpose that is not yet clear to me. Maybe he and his family are trying to cheapen our property values so they can buy it cheap and build a waterfront Trump hotel on the San Joaquin River. Maybe he wants to embarrass California for our sanctuary cities policies. Maybe he likes to see us fight amongst ourselves as a distraction while he raids the Treasury, rapes our public lands, and litters our coast with offshore oil rigs. I think the following is the best approach to dealing with this bully to minimize the leverage he has against us. Cancel the plans to ask the federal government for $400 million to expand Las Vaqueros Reservoir. Cancel plans to ask the federal government to return the Contra Costa Canal to local control. provide only the minimal water service to the Concord Naval Weapons Station based upon its historic usage and that required for emergency and fire suppression. Cancel any permits to bring human detainees onto the base by roads, rail, air, or water. My brother-in-law was a Marine guarding the base in 1961 and tells me there was a small airstrip on the base. I believe the above actions are under your purview. You can meet in emergency session, do them now. I look forward to watching as this council takes brave steps today to unravel any leverage Trump and his lackeys have to divide us and make us fight amongst each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can you give this to the city clerk? Down that way.
Okay.
Hold on. If you're going to hand in things, folks, you need to give them to the city clerk so they can be made official records. Okay, George, thank you for waiting.
Okay, George Fulmore, Concord. What I hope is we're sliding from a detention center worry into transitional migrant housing potential for Concord. My wife's from El Salvador. I've spent more than a year of my life in El Salvador. I've been all through Central America and much of Mexico. And I think this gives us time to reflect on disparities between our countries, our neighboring countries. In Mexico, wages are about 1/10 of that of the U.S. People there work all day for $5 to $10 a day. $300, $400 a month is common. Cost of goods are about the same. Of course, some people want to come for economic reasons. In Central America, things are worse. Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador especially, gangs, poverty, oligarchies that resist change. People have lack of hope. This moves people to want to be refugees. My understanding is only about 3% of the world live in countries they weren't born in. People typically don't just want to move. But Concord has been a rival city for Latinos for decades. Concord has the resources, human and economic, to accept people from other countries. I hope Concord will find a role in transitional migrant housing if this arrives, and I think Concord will do the right thing to accept more and more refugees from Central America and even possibly Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I have, now we have Greg, Rebecca, Zane, and Natalie from the overflow room, and the next 5 after them will be from this room, Kenji, Gemma DeMarco, Adirani Hogue, Victoria Mendoza, and Angela Dancer. Go.
Hello, I rise today to speak in solidarity with my brothers and sisters who are suffering from their families being separated. Also in stark opposition to what the Trump administration has done and is proposing with the internment center at the Naval Weapons Station. Thank you for your leadership as the city, and we hope that you stand up and do everything you can to prevent this. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Rebecca?
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Rebecca Nassar, and my family has lived in Concord in this area for over 50 years. Fortunately, I've only moved over here the last year and a half because I worked for San Mateo County as a Child Protective Service social worker. I have worked with, well, let me just say, my office was across the street from one of the very first internment camps that our country had. When they locked up our citizens, the Japanese citizens, during World War II, there's a plaque there denoting that. But I'm here to speak against separating families. I have worked with some of these children that have been brought up from South America by coyotes, have been raped by them, have been raped by and assaulted by our government people who were supposed to take care of them. I had the young lady, 13 years old, who we placed with her sister, who told me about the internment camps in Arizona. These are abominable situations. As far as Concord Naval Weapons Station, I hope you guys never get it. My brother-in-law worked out there until he died a couple years ago from cancer. And at that time, there was a cancer cluster in his office there on the Concord Naval Weapons Station. That place is not cleaned up. That place is toxic. How can we put houses there? How can we put businesses there? But we certainly should not put young children and people who are coming here for refuge for us to take care of them. Thank you again for allowing me to speak to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have Zane, then Natalie, then we go over to Kenji and Gemma.
Hi, my name is Zane Dundon, and I'm a Martinez resident. I want to make a brief statement today just about the reasons for opposing this rumored detention center. I'd like to thank the council for coming out so quickly in opposition to it, but I think we should keep our eye on the ball for why we oppose it. It's not because it's not practical. It isn't practical for many reasons, lack of infrastructure, sewage, water, but we should reject it not just because of that, but because it's an internment camp, because it's a moral abomination. And even if it was the perfect place with all of the water, sewage, and preparations, if there were already beds there, it would still be a disgusting moral abomination that we should oppose wholesale. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Natalie, then Kenji, and Gemma. Please line up over here. It makes it go faster, and people can get to hear you quicker.
Okay, I mean, like, the previous speaker brought up an issue, and I know how you feel. I know that you are opposed to this on moral grounds, and I understand that it is a difficult thing to, how do you put that in a letter? But I kind of wish the language was stronger in terms of that this is just wrong. And, you know, I am well aware that when Livy Schaaf spoke out against Trump, she became the target. And when Jesse Aragian spoke out about Trump's policies, he became a target. And, you know, there is always that looming fear, will you as our mayor become a target? Will us as a community be a target for things? And, like, one thing that I wanted to mention to outside groups that are here, that were here yesterday and they're here today, is we have to walk a very fine line. We want to be heard and we want to protest, but on the other hand, those of us that live in Concord will have to deal with the repercussions from the alt-right if they decide to target our community. And, you know, we will be the city where the neo-Nazis show up and have a rally if they decide to do so. And, you know, I do want to thank people for coming because I think it's important to see the support from other communities. But on the other hand, dance gracefully, because we don't want to create a situation where we have street riots and street fights here in Concord. It just doesn't suit our unique community's sensibilities. But yes, this issue is important to speak out about, and detention camps anywhere in the U.S., not just here, but anywhere in the U.S., are morally wrong.
Thank you, Natalie. I have Gemma, then Kenji, and Adarne Hogue.
Thank you. I didn't expect to be here today, but I'm really glad to have the opportunity to speak
Either
with
did we.
you. I am a 20-year resident of Concord. However, I grew up on the other side of this hill in Port Chicago. So I have some experience dealing with the government and the Navy, as 50 years ago, this year, the Navy evicted the residents of Port Chicago because either they wanted the land or if it was for our own good. It was for our own good, according to them, and so we were forced to leave. Now our government and our military wants to do a similar thing by lowering our home values by thinking about putting an internment camp, a detention center, whatever you want to call it, here locally. I am encouraged by what I've heard today about the statements that our representatives are saying, but I encourage you, please don't let up, because the people of Port Chicago fought long and hard to save our town. and eventually we lost. I don't want to see that happen here. I have enormous sympathy for the people that have to leave their country, let alone their home. So I really don't know how to solve that problem. Although I suggest, or maybe a suggestion would be to house these folks that need housing on the White House lawn or on the National Mall and let our representatives see what's happened due to their inability to do their jobs. I want you to do your job and fight for us and continue to fight for us, not here in Concord, please.
Thank you, Jenna. I have Kenji Adari, then Victoria Mendoza, Angela Dancer. Now, one moment. From the overflow room, please pay attention. I have Deborah Bernstein, Peter Campare, William Collin, Chris Lloyds, and Robin Milne. Thank you. Please go, Kenji.
Thank you. My name is Kenji Yamada. I'm a Concord resident and a member of Concord Communities Alliance. I appreciate the city's having taken an initial stance in opposition to the Navy's plan to offer the Naval Weapons Station land as a site for a DHS internment camp. I am a Japanese American. I'm conscious of what the federal government did to people with my ethnicity 76 years ago. And just like today, that mass incarceration was justified in terms of national security. Incarcerating people who are not a danger to others and have not willfully harmed others is wrong. I oppose this internment camp plan, which do not condone or tolerate similar that such camps will not be in California is not, they should not exist at all. And I ask the City Council to be ready to add its voice in opposition to internment in Arkansas anywhere at all.
Adam Hogue.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm from East Side San Jose, and I'm like animals, more than any of the multitude of scandals that have become routine in the spectacle of the Trump presidency. This outrage represents the most serious threat to Trump's power. The nation is at a turning point, and the movement for immigrants' rights is positioned to lead the way. All that is needed is leadership. And the lies and deceit surrounding Trump's detention policies, we can't believe any rumors or any promises that nothing is going on. So we call on the Concord City Council to immediately pass a resolution condemning the proposed immigrant concentration camp, proposing to imprison 47,000 people, potentially including children and infants, and pledging a policy of no cooperation with any attempt to locate a massive concentration for immigrants here, for people that are fleeing a level of violence that is greater than almost anywhere in the world. I just want to say that the most dangerous weakness of the avoidance strategy is that it promotes the illusion that Trump is beyond reach of anybody to oppose him. The task of the new immigrants' rights movement is to crush the deportation machine, shut down the concentration camps and baby prisons, free all the refugees, build community defense guards to stop ICE raids, and our movement must boldly name our enemy and defeat him. Trump must resign or be removed.
Thank you for your comments. I have Angela Dancer. I do wish to slip in Julie Yip, who stayed till almost midnight last night. And is requested to also address because she was called last night and was unable to complete. So, Angela Dancer, I have Julie Yip. Julie Yip. Now, Angela?
I'm Robin.
You're Robin. Okay. You're Robin Milne.
Robin Milne.
Can you allow her to speak just for a moment, please? Angela.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, and members of the public. My name is Julie Yip. I reside in Walnut Creek, but I do have family living here in Concord, and they do pay property taxes. I took part in a protest on Monday at Willow Pass Road in Galindo that was organized by the daughter of a woman of Japanese descent whose parents and many family members were incarcerated in the internment camps during World War II. We were protesting family detention centers in general, but in particular, the possibility of the Navy using the Concord Naval Weapons Station, CNWS, and/or Coast Guard property as detention centers that could detain, and you've heard the number, 47,000 immigrants and more, including their families. I mean, we hear the outrage here. I understand it, and I support the outrage. An interesting development did occur during the protest when a man pulled over and handed us a letter written by you, as we all have copies of, Mr. Mayor.
It was
addressed
me.
Yes, thank you very much. I wasn't sure, but thank you for getting that out of the way. Addressed to the Secretary of the Navy regarding Concord's concerns and asking for factual information about the Navy's detention center proposal. As I said, we all have access, or maybe I didn't say yet, we all have access to that same letter now, the content of which is why we're here. I noticed that the City Council, staff, our federal and state representatives, city supervisor, Assistant Secretary of the Navy were copied. My question is, why not Governor Brown? And let me say, I have watched your State of Concord address from January, so I kind of get an idea of how you feel about the politics in Sacramento. Needless to say, as witnessed by many residents of Concord who joined us in the protest march Monday and others in the surrounding community, we would very much like for the Concord City Council to stay its course in negotiations with the Navy to transfer CNWS to the city and East Bay Regional Parks District for, quote, development of your parkland, housing, and commercial
Thank you.
uses as stated in this letter.
Yes, I need to respect other people's time. Your
Yes.
time is up.
One thing I do want to request is that, that the time for the meetings for the city council be consistent on the website, because it lists at some point 6:30 and some at 6.
Thank you.
Please. And I don't want anybody to
Okay.
have the opportunity to miss
All
the
right, thank you.
public comments then. Thank
All
you.
right. Now, I have Robin, Chris, William, Peter, and Deborah from room 2. And then the next group will be Karen Perkins, Rex Takahashi, Carlos Gonzalez, Richard Ralston, and Candy Lancaster. So remember, they got another 5 over there. Go. Thank you, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I was here last night, and I appreciate you being here again today for this particular topic. In 2019, it will mark my 50th year in Concord, and I've lived here since I was 11. I saw Trump's wall this week when I went down to the border. I went to the Tijuana border. I had to see for myself. I couldn't believe what was going on in the news. I walked the pedestrian expressway over the freeway at the border, and it was an atrocious sight. Let me just say that. It was, not only was it loud and horrible for those folks that were walking back and forth across the border, it was just audacious, okay? I don't know exactly how much money that's costing, but that's awful. I sought out the addresses of the children's centers down there where they were supposed to keep the children separated, run by Juan Sanchez of the Southwest Key programs. I found those addresses and I went to those places. The Lemon Grove place and the one in El Cajon on Broadway. I was talking to the news people at Broadway, and they were not even aware of the Lemon Grove residents. Southwest Key is a big problem. This is a big business in immigration detention. It's a private business. We need to expose that. And I'm sorry, I'm glad that we're dealing with this here. When I was on my way back home, I got the news that we were having the Naval Weapons Station as a quote-unquote temporary camp, internment camp proposal. Desaulniers didn't even get the news except for by time. He was not even introduced to it by our damn president, sorry. I'm opposed to the continued caging of immigrants and political asylum seekers. This is going on here and all over the country. This has become a big business. It's immoral. It needs to stop. And as a community, I want a strong stand against the continued private detention facilities that this tent community proposal is like. This is not a partisan issue. Yes, Trump has escalated it, but it has decades old.
Robin.
It's become a humanitarian issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Deborah?
Good afternoon, council members and staff. I'm Deborah Bernstein with Monument Impact. We work very closely with the immigrant community. The whole concept of an internment camp in Concord just flies against the face of Concord's values and its families first principle. But maybe that is over. Maybe it is for sure. I pray that this is the last we hear of a potential internment camp here in Concord. But there are long-term ramifications even of a story that's only been in the news for a week. It's an increased form of intimidation, that part of which Concord may not be able to control, but part of it can be controlled. And if it's not controlled, it actually will change Concord forever. We feel this intimidation is at a time when our community is feeling the least protected. We are hearing about some very bad evictions in the monument. The protection of communities, it has to be now. We have to connect this to the detention center, to immigrant rights. Those protections are going to make Concord a more livable place in the long run, and it's going to reduce this terrible impact on children. That toxic stress is larger than we give it credit for. We have seen the impacts in schools with families disappearing because they've pulled their kids out. We have to consider the health and well-being of children and families, and I respectfully request that we actually tie this issue to the larger housing crisis in Concord and in the Bay Area because it is solvable. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter? Or no? William?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and members from the staff. My name is William Collin. I'm with Monument Impact. I totally oppose to this concentration camp that the rumor says that it's being placed in Concord. And I think that if we need to protect our people, our Concordians, we need to start now stopping the displacement of people. We need to stop the unfair evictions that they are facing. We need to protect that people that have been living here in Concord for years. Like, I encourage to all the room, like, raise your hand how many of you are from Concord and how many of you are afraid of those intimidation from landlords and also from the homeowners. As an immigrant, they are afraid. So we need to put some rights for them and also to protect them because there's something that we can do right now. We need also to take care of our children in Concord. We don't want more fear out there. I'm truly sure that we can find out a solution to protect our tenants. It's about tenants protection that we can help them. We don't want more landlords saying that they are going to call ICE and threaten those tenants because they are the people that they've been living for years in Concord. And what if this camp comes to Concord if we don't have that people anymore? If we are sending those people there to different cities, we want more houses, more affordable houses for them. We don't want cages. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay. I have Peter comparing. Peter? He was on the list. Okay. Then that was William. Then I have Chris Gonzalez.
Well, good. Aaron Perkins, a researcher for decades, a wonderful population. Respectful and loving children, and with parents who also were loving, peaceful, and very hardworking. And even though I'm this particular sign of a child, which is horrific, there are people or imperative for us to
imagine immigrants that feel the need to get away from violence, whatever their situation is, come to this country possibly don't have the resources to come here legally, to become legal residents, or have that we would be on this short place center.
Thank you, Richard.
Oh, that's all.
A citizen who lives in the shadow of the weapons station. To say that our city council members, to say that I have the same faith, misunderstatement.
In the past 25 for immigrants from the papers last November and December, the Chronicle, the East Bay Times, the West County Detention Facility was under fire for a lot of bad things, inhumane things they were doing there, like making the women, pee in bio bags. That whole thing that came down last November and December, you had to read about it. It was a big deal. It was on TV, the whole thing. And the reason I'm here, I got another 50 seconds, is because I know what it's like to be in those jails. The sheriff will tell you, they nothing from the truth. Okay, dealing with it right now, trying to help the detainees.
Be it resolved that the Contra Costa AFL-CIO Labor Council opposes and condemns such actions and will recommend all actions up to and including a general strike to stop these immoral and cruel policies. Finally, be it resolved that the resolution be sent to all local elected officials, the California Labor Federation Convention, and the AFL-CIO. Thank you for your action last year to become a fair, inclusion, safe, and welcoming city. It really was a testament to the 150th anniversary spirit of Concord. And thank you, too, for your rapid response, the letter, around this issue. And we'll be eternally grateful to the fierce leadership of Congressman Mark DeSaulnier to keep this thing from happening. But in the future, very concerned is not adequate. We need to remain really vigilant and be a spokespeople for other neighboring regions. This stuff is just wrong, and it underscores and reinforces the community's needs for affordable housing, like Deborah said, for seniors, for vets, for immigrants, for single-parent working families, and on the Naval Weapons Station. It underscores the need for a people-centered, not profit-centered development there. This is Concord's chance to be a beacon in the region, not just regionally, geographically, but on this issue as we go into another 150-year cycle. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I have Wayne, then Mamona, then Ana Villalobos, and Christina Powell.
Hello, my name is Wayne Calhoun. I'm a 25-year resident of the Monument Corridor Barrio, and speaking from experience, incarceration causes scars. Unjust incarceration causes deep scars. Incarcerating immigrants is unjust. I have deep scars. Pox on this cranky pants idea. Stop the scarring. As an aside, if 1% of this effort was focused on housing Concord's homeless citizens, 470 homeless folks could be housed. 1% of 47,000 is 470. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. I also like now to call, we got Mahmoud, Anna, Christina, Kathleen, and then Reverend Leslie Takahashi, Brian D.
Observing what's actually physically shaking. For someone who's been a politician for many years, that's unusual. As a human being, she was physically shaken. And reading what was in her email, which is on her website, is physically shaking. Let me start with the most bottom line thing, because she went to 3 different places that day. The last was called Port Isabel, which is referred to, quote, nicely as a reunification center. Euphemisms are part of the 1984 language. It's a detention center. It's a prison. Now, what she described is, by my definition, a concentration camp. I lost a good chunk of my mother's family in Auschwitz in Germany. So it's always been a very real thing to me. We toured the center. It is huge. Multiple buildings isolated on a sun-baked expanse of land far from any town. Well, Concord wouldn't be any far away. It's locked, double locked, and triple locked. Tall fences topped with razor wire are everywhere, each backed up by a second row of fences also topped with razor wire. The women I met were traumatized, weeping and begging for help. They don't understand what is happening to them, and they're begging to be reunited with their kids. The mothers say that they can hear babies cry at night. Now, what is some of this reunification? One of the other groups they met with were members of the ACU and several other attorney groups. And here were some of the comments. The Trump administration may be, quote, reuniting families, but their definition of a family is only a parent and a child. If, for example, a 9-year-old crosses with an 18-year-old sister or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or anyone who isn't the child's, oops, I'm
Mahmoud?
finished. Okay. At any rate, I think I made my point.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Heard loud and clear. Anna, then Christine, Kathleen, Reverend Leslie. Okay.
I always have issues with the height of this. It's okay. City mayor, I know I can put it down, it's fine. Thank you. City council and staff, thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I'm just gonna try to answer briefly to as much as possible as I can, what I think about immigrants, because I'm a proud immigrant. I would like to start reminding all of us that this nation was created by immigrants. And I believe this is the reason why this nation became so wonderful. Yes, we are immigrants, not criminals, neither animals. We are human beings full of dreams and looking for a better future in life. Maybe a lot of people does not understand why we immigrate to the United States. Well, I think it's time to go back into our own family books and history and ask them why they moved to this country. Please also know that it's not easy for a visa with the Homeland Security Services. Just 20 years, their family's life are in danger. And maybe in 10 years, they will not be alive if they stay in there. And as a mother, I understand the desperation you may feel of losing a child. Unfortunately, that happened to me, and I wish it don't happen to any of them. We don't come here because we want to cause damage. We are a wonderful, hardworking people. Let's treat others with the respect and dignity that we all deserve. And let's treat others with the golden rule. Treat others on the same way that you want to be treated. Would you like for a misdemeanor to be put in a cage? Think about it. Love is the answer. And thank you, City Council and officials, for fighting for us. Please keep doing it.
You, Anna.
And let's keep
Thank
the
you.
slogan, families first. Thank
I
you.
have Christine Powell, Kathleen, then Leslie, then I have Brian D., Chris Olson, and then finally another one, Camille Santana.
I'm not Christine, I'm Kathleen.
Who are you?
Kathleen.
Okay, Kathleen. Come.
Good afternoon, members of the council and mayor of Concord. My name is Kathleen Bolton Schmuckler, and I am a East Bay born and raised gal. Sometimes I work in Concord. I work for the County Office of Ed. Just for the sake of redundancy, I won't go into what everybody already has and has on the same page, but I just thought I'd like to discuss today about what we can do. I had some ideas. I think as long as we make this really difficult for the administration, I think a lot of this has to do with financial profit with these detention centers. And I think if we really hit them where it hurts, their wallet, it could help. I don't know what powers you have as an attorney, but if we team up maybe with the other cities around here as well as Marc Dessalines and sue the administration, perhaps sue the Navy to prevent this from happening. Again, try to not let them get the resources they really need to make this building happen. Deny them their water, deny them that airstrip, make it difficult. I think we need to be brave and I think we need to work collectively, and I'm here if you need me too. I think we all are here together in this, so thank you for your time, thank you for holding this meeting.
Thank you. Leslie? Hey. Leslie, then Brian, then Chris Olson, then Camille.
Thank you. Thank you again to the council. I'm Reverend Leslie Takahashi, and I represent the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. We have more than 100 members and friends that live within the boundaries of your city, so I'm very grateful to be here today. I came initially to make time in my day, and I appreciate this, that you created this space and your leadership, your swift action against this proposed facility. I came because I am the daughter of a man who was interned as a Japanese American at age 4. And my family has continued to suffer the intergenerational trauma from that, as I know the families of those children who have been suffering now will continue to suffer. I stay in the line, though, not to just take up your time, but to urge you to do two things. One is to consider, when it is legally possible, adopting some kind of resolution about the moral outrage that is represented by the request that was made of the city. And I ask that because I think this is a time you were not asked to be drawn into this particular set of circumstances, but you have become involved in it. And as people who have an opportunity to state the nature of what is happening in our nation, I would urge you to do that. And secondly, I stayed in line because I am a member of the Contra Costa County Racial Justice Task Force, which is which has just issued a report, which will be taken up by the County Board of Supervisors on July 24th, which looks at the larger issues around immigration and detention in our county. And I urge all of you and everyone in this room to please come out and listen to what is happening in the larger moral travesty that is our immigration policy and the ways in which we are cooperating in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Brian.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, City Council, for putting on this meeting on such short notice. And thanks to everybody for showing here on a day when most people are at work, especially the Japanese American folks here, because they bring a very stark reminder of exactly what we should not be doing. But anyway, I'm just a concerned citizen, a person who lives around the Dave Brubeck neighborhood, so basically right exactly where the Concord Naval Weapons Station is. And I can just tell you, and this should go without saying, this is a bad idea from pretty much every angle, from an ecological angle, from a psychological angle, from an economic angle, from a humanitarian angle. I just cannot think of any way this is a good idea. Geographic angle, I mean, has anyone looked at a map of California? It doesn't look like we're by the southern border. It's just such a bad idea that I'm even beginning to question, are they even serious about this? Is this just election politics? Are they trying to drive a wedge in, as Mark Tassani was suggesting? I don't know. But what I do know is, regardless, if this is going to be, do not let this mockery of a president, this infiltrate our mind.
You're going to speak on behalf of Chris, and you do have an actual note from Chris?
Yeah, he had to go to work. Actually, he's a builder. He's
we
helping.
take your word for it.
Huh?
We take your word for it.
Yeah. No, well, it's part of the story. I'm building a narrative.
You got 2 minutes.
Yeah. So he had to go to work. He did want to stay and speak, but he's working on $1 million home across from the Concord Naval Weapons Station. And there's that disparity that really bothers him, that on one side of the fence could potentially be people who are trapped, and on the other side of the fence is $1 million home. He is strongly morally opposed, and he wanted to talk about what happens to children when they're broken away from their families and from their parents, that, there's just that strong chance that that child is going to grow up without a strong role model, and that life will lead towards possibly crime and then to being incarcerated because they didn't have that moral guidance growing up. And he wanted to point out this irony in that the government says that we can't grow weed in our backyards, but we can have detainees in our backyards. And again, I can't stress that he was very, very strongly emotional about the situation, very, very morally opposed.
I have then Camille, and she is the last card.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for holding this today. I'm a mother. I have a 4-year-old. My mom is an immigrant from the Philippines, came in '75. My dad's a veteran. My uncle's a Navy veteran. I'm really proud about being in the U.S., just to say that. And I believe in a Concord that puts all families first. I respectfully ask that the council stand against allowing an immigrant prison in Concord. I want to see a Concord that takes a strong stand against inhumane treatment of people. Immigrants are our brothers and sisters. They are still people, regardless of immigration status. This is a really powerful time to take a proud stand against racism, bigotry, and hatred, and the nation is watching us. So I'd love for you to take a strong stand in leadership that we don't ever. I'm really proud to see Concord of an immigrant prison in Concord, because I believe strongly that I'm not moved to, and I think we all, our people, leadership has the ability, answers and solutions that. Thank you so much for.
Okay. You made it.
Good afternoon, City Council, the public. Thank you for having this meeting. When issued a public, a welcoming, inclusive, tolerant, and supportive the proposed detention center. Thank you very much.
Okay. I have no other cards. I will bring it back to the council, but I would like to take a 5-minute break before we go into this.
Through the mayor.
Okay. Cards, and then if I have to make Christine Powell. Are you here? Folks, can you please return to your action stations? Can someone find Ron? And ladies and gentlemen, can you please take your seats? We know where Ron is? Okay. We will begin in about 2 minutes. So calm down. Okay, everyone is from recess, and
I think it's safe to see so many people. This is something that maybe this may or may not need to not be complacent by not being able to develop. And quite honestly, it's something that, I still have my reservations about this. I hope we can get kind of those final confirmations from everyone, and I know that, this is what we support. This is what we see. Just to be able to say, hey.
First of all, I'd like to down here, but also getting out into the streets, getting out onto social media, and really letting us know how strongly you oppose this proposal. I'd also like to thank Congressman DeSaulnier, who immediately, as soon as he heard that this was a policy, most of us have could be heard cautiously. And guarded, because quite frankly, we have grand plans for the Naval Weapons Station. We want to benefit Concord families. We have plans that we have all been working very hard on, input from the Concord community, from this city council, from previous city councils, to transform the Naval Weapons Station into a community that we can really be proud to call a part of Concord. A smart city, a city with a youth tournament sports complex, hopefully an institution of higher learning. And we are going to continue forward optimistically that that is the vision that's going to come to fruition. So I want to thank you all for being here today And I do believe that all of my colleagues have received notification of some events that are going to be going on this weekend, and I anticipate that you will be seeing most of us, if not all of us, there. Thank you.
Okay. Like my colleagues, I do appreciate everybody coming out here to voice their concerns. It's unfortunate that we have to do this, though, that we're put in this position, an unwanted position, because there's nobody in this room, I don't think, that would like to have something like this thrust upon us. I particularly, like many of you, are descendants of migrants. I mean, both my sets of grandparents came from, on my father's side came from Italy, on my mother's side came from Mexico. And so understanding the feeling of migration and coming into a new country, and then being treated the way they're being treated is not acceptable. And we certainly don't want that in Concord. It doesn't fit for our plans that we have for the Naval Weapons Station. It's only going to hurt our economic development and stifle our what it is for our city, because our city is truly a city where families come first, and this is not reflective of that. And so none of us want it. We will continue to fight any aspirations. I'm happy to find out that it doesn't look as though they're going to pursue it, but I think it's good for us to be outspoken, to let people know that even if they change their mind, we don't change our mind. We don't want it. So thank you. Laura?
Thank you. Again, thank you to all the speakers who took time out, both yesterday or evening that came out under public comment, those that you came today. I just want to share, quite frankly, when I heard the news Friday, I was like with the vice mayor, it must be one of those alternative news stories, again, that's out there. Maybe Russia infiltrated another news media outlet and has planted a story and it's getting everybody all worked up. But that's why we had to take the time to figure out, on Friday, scrambling with staff on vacations and the assistant city manager at her daughter's wedding. Timing was very difficult, but I applaud our staff for working on this issue and trying to determine whether or not the information, unfortunately, was correct, with the Time Magazine article. But, there's some comments that came out from the letters that was certainly the same things that I felt when I first heard the news, that it was actually potentially, it was a true statement. It was information that the Navy and the Department of Defense was looking into. It was, unacceptable, horrified, disgusted. It's a crazy idea. It's a travesty, absolute outrage, reprehensible, just plain wrong. And those are some of the same thoughts that went through my mind when I was, found out that this was actually something that was talked about back in Washington, D.C. Especially concerning to me is not only in our community, where we do have the slogan we've had for many years, where families come first. That's all families. And then most recently, last year when I was mayor, we finished up doing the welcoming, inclusive, tolerant, supportive community resolution. And actually, we talk about treating all with dignity and respect. So that was concerning to me, that here was a proposal that absolutely went against all these values that we have as a community. And there was a statement that a resident wrote in, and I'm glad they did, because it's not only a statement from our community, but it's from the nation. And when I read it, you all know what it is. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest, tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. 130 years ago. We've been operating under these principles as a nation for 130 years. And so it was even from a local level, I was very, very discouraged, disappointed, and outraged. But from an American citizen, outraged that this is something that was happening or being discussed at a national level. So as it was said we need to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. We need to remain vigilant. And I will note that one of the comments in Congressman DeSaulniers' statement is that continue to fight against inhumane and unjust policies proposed by the administration. It is important not to let our guard down, as in one tweet, things can change. Very, very difficult times for all of us, both here in America and around the world, an administration that seems to run by tweets. So it makes it very difficult. The stories that have been on the news media, the individuals, Jackie Spear, the rest that have gone down to Texas and actually met with them, and the news media that's gone out and seen these places. Having a child taken away from you, which is what these facilities would actually create as places to try to reunify or to house them there, doesn't matter, but I think most of us have had a child lost in a supermarket or a mall just for a little while, and you panic. You're angst. You have fear. You do as the parent, going, oh my God, what happened to them? Where did they go? Somebody's maybe taken them, or maybe they got kidnapped. You don't know. And that 10, 15 minutes until you're reunited, and at the same time, your child is often, if they're not playing with something that they found interesting, but they're often scared and looking for their parent and wandering around trying to find their parent. In just that moment, I think most everybody's had that experience. That's what these families are having to experience, that America has done to them. So I'm disappointed about that. And these detention centers, I'm looking back in our history, and it's a sad history, but we have a chance to make it better going forward. We broke up Native American families when we went west from the East Coast. We broke up African American families as slavery came about. We created internment camps, and we broke up Japanese families, although some of them were kept together, but still they were taken from their neighborhoods, their communities, and their livelihood. We fought in World War II against the Germany and the concentration camps, and where they separated their families of Jewish descent. And many of them had immigrated to Germany from Poland, and then they were being sent back to Poland if they were able to get back. But they separated those families out, and we know what became of that with the Holocaust. I come from immigrants, as Ron said. My immigration goes way, way back. They came over here, potato famine, Irish and German descent, but Irish came at that time. So these are folks that are fleeing terrible circumstances, gangs, drug traffickers, and I understand Trump says, hey, the bad guys get in too. I don't know that the bad guys are fleeing with their child across a desert and through a river and over a wall, if there's ever going to be a wall, to come here. That's not how the drug traffickers and the gang guys and the bad guys are getting here. I think, in my mind, we need to stand up and stay opposed to these types of facilities, not just in Concord, but everywhere. They're wrong. They're just morally wrong. I'm thinking, geez, we have better places for lost animals that we put in air-conditioned facilities and beautiful rooms and lodging, and we try to find them a good home. And it broke my heart seeing what we were doing to the families that were fleeing unrest. I would hope that our administration would look at helping those countries so those countries are stabilized, so those families don't have to seek out safety and stability elsewhere. That's where our resources should go. So I appreciate the person suggesting that if we had to have detention facilities, there's a lot of space on the National Mall and the White House lawn. That would be great. But quite frankly, I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. So thank you, Dr. Seuss, but I do. Those are my direct thoughts on this issue, and we'll continue to be vigilant, as my colleagues have said, against this issue, and to ensure that we do everything in our powers to make sure it doesn't happen, not only in our community, but me personally, to make sure that my voice is heard also, that this is not the right way to treat folks seeking asylum and trying to seek a better life here in America.
Thank you. Any further? Otherwise, I'll go. As your mayor, when I received this news, waking me up at a noontime nap, my immediate reaction was, is this Times the Onion? or is this something else? I also thought, I reminded them, it's Friday, it's supposed to be a slow news day. What are you doing? You're breaking the rules. So I immediately started to try going through the classic reaction. What is the truth? We were reacting on Friday based on a leaked draft of a memo to someone who hadn't received it. But nevertheless, we started to take immediate action. All through the weekend, we immediately issued a press release that said this is a horrible idea, and we needed to get further information. All through the weekend, our staff, myself, Congressman DeSaulnier, and others, we all tried to get solid information. It was not forthcoming. I even reached out to the mayor of one of the other cities in Yuma, and to find out on Sunday that he too had absolutely no clues to what was going on. Yuma is about the size, about 100,000 people, a little smaller than us. So on Monday, we determined I was going to write a letter to demand some answers and also to spell out what our response was to the little information that we had, so that the people who were making this suggestion, would have some factual information from here that shows that we are totally opposed to it and it's totally inappropriate. Not only from a practical standpoint, just looking at focus of, if you want to do this, why shouldn't you do it on a practical purpose? And then on an economic basis, then on the basis of the relationships between Navy and communities, and then how it would fit within the entire concept of what we are as Concord. And then through the obvious tone that this is just not something that we do. The city of Concord, we are celebrating our 150th anniversary. And the way we were founded was this. An earthquake destroyed the nearby town, was and eliminated. His come here, you the dollar, all right? The people that was the very concept. We live in concordance with each other. This is the town of Concord. And we must always remember that. That is our founding value. This is not the town of discord. We will not be allowed to be made into discord. We started this meeting with the pledge, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Some of us said someday. That's wrong. It's not someday. It is every day. It is this day and forever this day. And the concept of having a detention center in the midst of such a flow of goodwill towards others is ridiculous. We are Americans. We are founded on the concept of from many to one. This is not an economic statement for billionaires. This is an actual hope that we would all come together. As such, we do not and should not and will not perpetuate the concept of dividing ourselves and dividing families and taking harsh, draconian methods. But in this, I would also like to thank you for coming out and supporting the positions that we enunciated in your name that Monday night, that Monday afternoon, and continue. But I would like to remind you that while the outpouring here was great, and remember that politicians are not moved by silence, and we're either listening to you or listening to someone else. But if you look at the blogs and you look at what's around here, there is still a sizable group who are totally opposed to everything that we said this day and do not believe in the very statements that I just made. And they're here. And they are us also. So our goal, our role, is not only to be a beacon for justice and liberty for all, but also to echo in our community the concept of concordance, the concept of being together of being a neighbor, of standing united, because there are still plenty in our own neighborhoods who need to hear that. And you are the walking mirrors and echoes of that sentiment. So what you did today in this place, right here, you need to take out and live with it. Whether you're online at the Safeway, whether you're trying to find out how to put a dime in the meter in Walnut Creek, or whether you're standing in line at a BART station in Oakland for a train that will never come. Or it will go to the wrong place, all right? Never to guess. You are the ones that need to carry the message, not just today, but every day. The detention centers are anti-American. They're a blight on our honor, and they are contrary to what we have struggled to create. And you need to go out, and you need to live the life and live the value to make this happen and make sure it's stopped everywhere. So with that, I thank you. We have been notified that our meeting at 5 o'clock has been canceled because they believe it is, the issue has been resolved. And do I have any other further comments from anyone?
Yes, Mayor, I just want to note that in your packet of correspondence today, there were 4 or 5 letters that wanted to be read into the record, and per this right now, this is reading them into the records. They're incorporated into the record for the correspondence today.
Is it required that you actually read them now?
It's not required.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, folks. Does that work? Thank you for staying late. Oh, hello there. What's your elbow?